This is the second video of two in my review and introduction of the Nikkormat FTN. Stick around after this video, or I suppose advance to the end right now if you really want to miss all of the great stuff that's coming between now and then. And you can see a whole bunch of photos, I don't know exactly how many yet, maybe half a dozen, that I took with my two FTN cameras to give you an idea of how accurately these cameras can meter. A lot of its film image quality is based on film, but the metering quality is based on the camera, and these do a very, very good job. So anyway, that said, we're going to start with lens mounting and dismounting. And in the first video, I had a very simple entry-level table showing lens compatibility. So I have two different types of lenses in my collection. I have a whole bunch of these old NAI lenses, and I love them because they're fairly inexpensive compared to newer Nikon lenses, but I will tell you what, their glass quality is just as good. And then I have this AI-AF. I also have a non-autofocus AI lens, but it's aftermarket, so I didn't bring it over. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the reason I have three of these pre-AI lenses, and you can tell they're all original pre-AI lenses because none of the prongs have nostrils on them. I have three because they have three different fast apertures, and we're going to take a look at mounting them and making sure that what I told you in the last video about setting them at f5.6 is correct. We're going to live put that to the test. Well, not live, I mean this is recorded, but I haven't actually done a dry run on this. So this is a, this is a 135 millimeter lens. It goes from f3.5 all the way down to f32, which is ridiculously fast. So I'm going to set this at f5.6. Line up the pin, and it just locks into place. So it looks like I was right, f5.6, and it locks in. Now there's our first click, down to f3 or up to f32 rather, stopping it down that far, f3.5, and now the camera's indexed. Hold the button down, dismount it, put that lens cap back on. This is the typical kit lens from the Nikkormat FTN, which was a 50 millimeter f2. That's got to be all the way down to the side in order for this to work. There we go. Now it's indexed all the way down to f2, back up to f16. Now, one last lens, and then we're going to come back to this f2 in a minute. One last lens is this autofocus Nikkor. Now you'll notice as I rotate it in my fingers, it does not have a prong on it. It just has the AI tab right there. So I'm going to mount this on the camera. And here's the meter coupling. No matter what I do with the aperture dial, this doesn't move. So there's no metering available with the later lenses that do not have a prong on them, which are the AF, F mounts, and the Gs, which are, if there's a Justin loving God, I will never own one of those G lenses. Not, you know, not to hide my feelings about them. And then the E-series lenses did not have prongs on them. Those lenses do not meter on this camera. In fact, the G-series lenses don't really even work properly because they only shoot wide open. Hey, fun fact for you. Even though I shoot Pentax, and this lens we're looking through right now is my Sigma macro lens, it's got a Nikkor filter on it. Yeah, that wasn't really fun, was it? Okay, so here's what we're looking at. We're looking at this indexing dial on the side of the lens mount, and you can see right there there's a red dot. That red dot tells me that my minimum aperture is somewhere between 1.2 and 2.8, right about where 2 is. 1.8 and 1.4 would be located there and there. 3.5 is right about there. and then 5.6. Lenses slower with a maximum aperture slower than f5.6 are difficult to use on this. In fact, I don't know how to do it. There might be a way, there might not be. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to dismount this lens, unmount this lens. It's just going on about how that's the proper way to say it in the last video. Okay, now that red dot, it's over there it's nowhere. It's just disappeared. Okay, that's the shutter speed dial, so we can't see it. Now, this is how you can check to find out whether or not you have properly mounted your lens. Let's get that started. So when it clicks back the second time, it puts the red dot where the maximum aperture is, at f2 in this case. That's how you can tell that it's been properly indexed. Now, while I've got the macro lens on, here's what you see through the viewfinder. That's the light meter. Very simple. You're either overexposed at the bottom or underexposed at the top. It is backwards compared to what most of us are used to seeing in our light meters, which led to a couple of very unfortunate rolls of film early on for me. And then we've got, you can see the metering, the center is for focus. That's the 4mm ring that we talked about in the first video. And then that outer ring is for metering. That's the 60%, that larger 12mm outer ring represents 60% of the metering weight, with the rest of the focusing mat making up the remaining 40%. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount load film into the camera. Darn it. I'm still in a cast. Bending over to get this film is going to be fun. Oh boy. Okay, I got it. I'm safe. I actually kind of thought I was just going to fall, and this video was going to be 7 more minutes until the time ran out on the memory card of me screaming. There was a very real chance of that. So here's how we load film into this camera. After we open up the back, the switch is over here. We're going to push the rewind knob up, insert the film. We're going to bring this back down, pull the leader out over here to this side where it's going to slide into the take-up spool, with the holes going onto the sprocket like that. Oh yeah. You should always tighten this before you shut it all the way. There we go. Can't wait to get this camera fixed so I don't have to smack it every time I take a shot. Literally, I do have to do that every single time I take a shot, so I'm not going to do any more of these. Once you've got your film loaded, then rewind, and you know it's not going to go anywhere. Rewind this a little bit until it's tight. You don't want to make the film squeal and squeak because you'll scratch your negatives. Rewind it till it's tight. Now it's in place. Every time you take a picture and advance the frame, this will turn the opposite way to let you know that the film is being taken up over here. That's a safety check for that. Now you take a picture by hitting the shutter release. You can pose it, focus it, set your aperture, make sure your meter's correct, and then hit the shutter release over here to take your picture. Once you're done, we'll push this button down here. I'm holding it down with my right pinky right now. And spool that back in until you've got all the film back into the canister. I still want to use this film, so I don't want it all in the canister. Take the film out, take it to be developed, and there you've got your photos. So this is a bayonet mount battery cover. It's not going to come open for me right now. Ooh, maybe. There it goes. Just pops right out once it's ready to be opened. And you put the positive side in, touching the battery cap. Put it in, give it a 90-degree turn. Counterclockwise. There we go. That's only 45, but that'll do the trick for now. And that locks the battery in place. This uses an Li650 battery. The flash PC ports are over here. There's a shoe adapter that screws into the eyepiece, and then it puts an accessory shoe on top of the prism. I don't have it, unfortunately. And then you can mount your flash on top of the camera and then connect it to the PC port over here, whichever one is appropriate. Anymore, the only one you're going to use is the X port, the Xenon port, which has a flash sync speed of 1/125th of a second. And the reason it's got that flash sync speed is because it has the vertical travel focal shutter curtain. So you've got your shutter curtain here. This is the main one that we see when we look in the back of the camera. This one here. And then there's another one right underneath it. And what happens is when you hit the shutter, this one goes up and then that one follows and closes it. Now when you advance the film, this one comes back down, keeping it perfectly dark. So when the fastest shutter speed rather, where the top curtain is open and the bottom curtain is open and the entire film plane is being exposed to light, is 1/125th of a second. Anything faster and you only have a partial exposure to light, you know, maybe something like 1/250th, 1/500th, 1/1000th. So that's why the electronic flash sync speed is 1/125th of a second. The M and FP bulbs will sync up to 1/1000th of a second, but they aren't sold anymore, so I guess a lot of good that does you, huh? I mean, you might be able to find some old ones online, but really that's a pretty outmoded form of flash, but they do work for the entire range. It's because the reason they work for the entire range is because they have a longer flash duration. So the X-Sync, the electronic flashes, have a very fast flash. They just burst very quickly. So your shutter has to be all the way open. But the bulbs have a much longer burn, longer than the shutter operation. Therefore, they're producing light the entire time that a shutter is open. So that's the difference. Special features on this camera include the mirror lockup. And so let's say that we're taking a picture that requires a mirror lockup. We're going to do a series of photos for fireworks. That's a perfectly good example. Fireworks are a good mirror lockup photo opportunity because you're going to use a long shutter speed. So you'll have it mounted on a tripod. Lock up the mirror like that. And then you can't look through this, so you'll obviously want to have had your image composed first. Then take the lens cap off, obviously. Anytime there's a picture, you just hit the shutter release. And typically for this, you're going to be using bulb mode. Not necessarily, but for fireworks, you would use bulb mode. And then if you need to meter it, which you wouldn't for fireworks, again, you would use it here. But so that's one example. Another example would be, let's say you're doing some micro photography with a microscope. Well, with a microscope, you want to have a very steady camera. And also the same thing with like star trails. You want to have a very steady camera. But with a microscope, you have a steady camera, so you would lock up your mirror, and then you can do your metering off the body meter, and then take the picture, set the shutter speed however you need to, and then take the picture whenever you want to take it. Old-time microscopes like that, some of them would have had a splitter, so you could watch what was going on through the microscope with one side of the splitter, and then the camera could be hooked up to the other. And that was one way of doing old-timey microscopy imaging. Also for step-down metering, right here, this is useful. I guess this is useful if you're using a macro bellows, let's say, but you could also use this with one of these AFS or E-series lenses. So you don't get automatic metering, but you can get step-down metering with those. So that's the introduction to this video. Stick around, or to this camera. Stick around for a few minutes, and we'll look at some photos I've taken with this and my other FTN camera. And if this video was helpful, Give me a thumbs up if you like it. That lets me know that I'm on the right track and I'm recording videos that you guys like. Also, you can subscribe to my channel up above, and that will let you know anytime I have another photography or non-photography related video that that's released. And if you have any suggestions for other videos, you can email those to me, or you can put them in the comments section. I'm pretty good about responding to comments pretty quickly, and if I have the technical knowledge and the equipment to do that video, I'd be more than happy to film it for you. And lastly, thank you guys for watching.